Before February 2026 even rolls around, supermarket aisles across the US are already showing signs of unexpected shortages. According to data from over 400 grocery stores, inventory for 10 key items has dropped anywhere from 35% to a staggering 80%. No announcements, no alerts, just quietly disappearing from shelves. What's truly surprising is which products are vanishing. It's not staples like eggs, milk, or meat. Instead, it's everyday ingredients you might take for granted. Things like vanilla extract, jasmine rice, and frozen vegetables. These are the very items that form the foundation of many winter meals. Some major retailers have already reduced their purchase orders, suppliers have imposed limits, and a handful of products could be completely sold out before February 2026 even starts. The reasons behind these shortages are varied. Seasonal factory closures, extreme weather wreaking havoc on farms, rising energy costs, pushing up production expenses, and, perhaps most significantly, major exporting countries restricting shipments to ensure they have enough for their own populations. Today we're diving into the 10 most unexpected grocery items that could vanish from shelves before February 2026. And believe me, numbers 2 and 1 are products nearly every household uses every single day. Starting from number 10, premium coffee beans. Coffee is more than just a morning beverage for many, especially for people over 50. It's often the last quiet ritual in a life that feels increasingly hectic. The hum of the grinder, the gentle curl of steam rising from the cup, the aroma filling the kitchen, all of it signals that a new day has begun, no matter how chaotic the world feels outside. But that small, comforting ritual is now at risk in a way most coffee lovers haven't even noticed yet. The global supply of coffee is literally collapsing. In Brazil, the heart of Arabica production, farmers are calling the recent drought the scythe of the sky, which destroyed hundreds of thousands of acres of coffee trees. And when the drought finally ended, it wasn't relief that arrived. It was frost, which can damage coffee plants even faster than scorching heat. Meanwhile, in Ethiopia, entire growing regions have been wiped out by flooding, while in Colombia, landslides are blocking mountain roads, leaving whole shipments of beans stranded for weeks. Over in Central America, ripe coffee cherries are rotting in the fields because there simply aren't enough workers to harvest them. Farmers are powerless, forced to let the crops fall where they may. On top of all this, global shipping costs continue to climb. The beans sitting in containers aren't stuck because there's no coffee. They're stuck because there's no way to get them to the roasters. And as the year winds down, in colder regions when moods drop and coffee consumption naturally rises, it's not the cheap blends that vanish first. It's the premium beans. Single-origin Ethiopian coffee, light roast Kenyan, small-batch Colombian, and other reserve varieties. These are the flavors longtime drinkers have built their daily routines around. The real fear isn't simply running out of coffee. It's being forced to drink something completely different from what you've relied on for 10, 20 years. Anyone who's lived half a lifetime knows some habits aren't easily replaced just because the market changes. At that point, it's not just a preference, it's a source of emotional stability. You don't need to stockpile a bunker of coffee. But if your mornings start with one specific bean, one exact aroma, one precise flavor, keeping a few extra bags sealed in a cool, dry place isn't panic. It's preserving the rhythm of your day before coffee prices hit. What experts predict could be the steepest surge in years. No one can choose your morning cup for you, but the market can force you to drink something you didn't want if you don't plan ahead. 9. Jasmine and basmati rice. There's something unusual about rice. When a staple you've always taken for granted suddenly feels like a luxury, it catches your attention. Most people barely think about it. Nobody ever stands in their kitchen and says, "Thank goodness we still have rice today." But everything shifts when that last bag in your pantry is almost gone. I remember a Thai aunt sharing a story about her early years in the US back in the 1990s. She had arrived with just a single small bag of jasmine rice. As it dwindled, she stopped cooking freely, carefully measuring only half a cup per meal, worried she wouldn't find the taste of home in American supermarkets. Then she said something I'll never forget. When you don't have the rice you grew up with, it feels like you're no longer at home. 30 years later, that story is repeating. But this time, it's not just about local availability. The shortage is global. India has extended its export restrictions for another year, removing tens of millions of tons of jasmine and basmati from worldwide supply. Thailand has been battered by weeks-long floods, and the Mekong Delta, the rice bowl of Southeast Asia, is experiencing the worst saltwater intrusion ever recorded. Even in the U.S., farmers are shifting fields from rice to soybeans because it's more profitable and less vulnerable to extreme weather. And when China, with nearly 1.5 billion people, places massive rice orders to secure its food reserves, the entire global market feels the impact instantly. There's a saying, when China buys, the rest of the world can only hope. Your viewers are seeing this unfold firsthand. In many U.S. states, jasmine rice has vanished from shelves entirely. In other regions, prices are soaring while only lower quality or mixed varieties remain. One person wrote, "I've eaten this rice for 40 years. Do I really have to switch now?" It's hard to tell someone to replace a food that's tied to their memories, their homeland, and their emotional comfort. You can't tell a South Asian family to swap basmati for long-grain rice, just as you wouldn't tell an Italian to replace spaghetti with instant noodles. That said, there is a practical approach. If jasmine or basmati rice is a daily staple for your family, keeping an extra 5 to 10 kilograms at home isn't panic buying. It's responsible preparation. Stored properly, rice lasts a long time. And when the market enters the tight supply window in the first weeks of 2026, you won't find yourself running from store to store just to locate the grain that's been part of your life for decades. Rice doesn't just fill the stomach. Sometimes it nourishes memory. And memory is something you don't want to lose just because the global supply chain is unraveling bit by bit. 8. Vanilla extract. That tiny bottle that packs a surprisingly big hit to your grocery budget. If there's one flavoring quietly moving from a cheap baking staple to a full-blown luxury item, it's vanilla extract. Most people don't realize just how fragile the supply is. About 80% of the world's natural vanilla comes from a single, delicate stretch of land, Madagascar. This isn't like planting corn and harvesting it in a few months. Vanilla is an orchid, hand-pollinated, taking 3 to 4 years to yield its first bean. That means a single destructive storm doesn't just ruin one year's harvest. It can wipe out several years' worth of future supply. In recent years, Madagascar has faced repeated blows from tropical cyclones, heavy rains, and flash floods, destroying thousands of hectares of vanilla farms. Meanwhile, secondary growing regions like Comoros and Uganda can't produce enough to fill the gap. For years, the global market has been sounding the alarm. Vanilla is on its way to becoming one of the most expensive flavoring ingredients in the world, more costly than silver by weight. Then came the second hit. A fire at U.S. vanilla reserves wiped out a large portion of the backup supply meant to stabilize prices during bad harvests. The global supply chain is now hanging by a thread, and America just lost its safety net. At the same time, demand keeps climbing. Coffee shops are rolling out endless vanilla lattes and vanilla cold brews. Ice cream, protein shakes, yogurt, breakfast cereals all rely on vanilla. And during the holiday season when households are baking cookies and desserts non-stop, what do shoppers see? Bottles shrinking, prices creeping higher, and more products swapping pure vanilla extract for vanilla flavor or natural flavor. That's shrinkflation and product downgrade happening right in front of your eyes. And when everything else is already more expensive, paying a few extra dollars for vanilla starts to sting. So, what's the smart move? This isn't a call to hoard, but if your household regularly bakes, makes desserts, or enjoys vanilla-flavored coffee, keeping 1 or 2 bottles of pure vanilla extract on hand before the next price jump is completely reasonable. In this case, that small bottle in your pantry isn't just about adding flavor. It's a quiet test of whether you're prepared or waiting until the shelves run empty and you regret it. 7. Cooking oil, sunflower, canola, olive. You don't realize how much your kitchen depends on oil until you try to fry an egg and find the bottle nearly empty. Most people never give it a second thought until that day arrives. And as we move into February 2026, shortages are showing up faster than ever. Sunflower oil from the Black Sea region is nearly off the market because of ongoing conflicts. Factories that once produced millions of liters each month are now running at a fraction of their capacity. As the food industry pivots towards soybean, canola, and olive oils, the pressure falls on supplies that were already stretched thin. Right in the middle of the holiday season, the time Americans use the most cooking oil, Restaurants are scrambling to switch to cheaper alternatives just to keep serving meals. Snack manufacturers are quietly stockpiling raw oil to keep their production lines running, and while you may not see these battles, you feel them every time you walk into a store and notice the slowly spreading gaps on the shelves. Running out of cooking oil isn't like missing one ingredient. It feels like your whole kitchen is locked down. No frying eggs, no sautéing vegetables, no proper dinners for the family. It's a frustrating, everyday kind of helplessness, harder to cope with than almost any other shortage. You don't need to stockpile as if you're preparing for the apocalypse. But if your household cooks regularly, keeping a few bottles of canola or olive oil in a cool, dark spot isn't hoarding. It's practical preparation for a very inconvenient winter. Anyone who's ever stood over a hot pan with an egg cracked, only to realize there's no oil, knows exactly why planning ahead matters. Before we move on to the next item, I genuinely want to hear from you. In your area, which type of cooking oil is disappearing or climbing in price the fastest? Real viewer reports often reflect reality far faster than official data ever can. 6. Frozen vegetables. When your freezer becomes your only garden, that's when you realize just how important frozen vegetables are. In many northern states, by the time February rolls around, fresh produce is scarce. Grocery store aisles might be full of bread, canned meats, and frozen dinners, but fresh fruits and vegetables? Wilted, overpriced, and limited, forcing shoppers to think twice before picking up even a single bunch. For countless families over 50 who want to keep meals healthy, frozen vegetables are the winter garden, the thing that keeps plates green when everything outside is buried in ice and snow. Behind a simple $3 bag of frozen broccoli is a massive, precise operation. Farmers must harvest at exactly the right time. Factories need to wash, chop, and prep within hours. Freezing lines must run constantly. Cold storage can't lose power, and refrigerated trucks must deliver on schedule. If even one link in the chain fails, a storm knocks down power lines, a drought destroys a crop, or a snowstorm shuts down highways, entire freezer aisles can be empty in just a matter of days. Many people have already felt this firsthand. Online orders partially canceled due to temporary shortages. The familiar brand of spinach you've relied on for 10, 20 years suddenly gone, replaced with a smaller brand at nearly double the price. The most unsettling moment isn't the lack of vegetables, it's opening the freezer once your safe zone and finding it almost empty. Preparing for this scenario doesn't have to be complicated. When broccoli, cauliflower, spinach, or mixed veggies are still fully stocked and reasonably priced, simply add an extra bag or two to your cart and store them in the freezer. Those who like to be extra cautious can buy fresh produce on sale, blanch it, and freeze it themselves. This isn't panic buying. It's making sure your winter meals don't turn into nothing but carbs and canned meat just because the supply chain decided to catch a cold in the middle of winter. 5. Canned soups and bone broth. The ultimate comfort food for sick days, chilly days, or moments when you just don't have the energy to cook. Anyone over 50 knows that feeling. There are days when your body feels drained, your throat burns, your hands shake from the cold, and the only thing you want is a warm, soft bowl of something easy to swallow. On those days, a simple can of soup or a carton of bone broth can completely save the day. But these comforting staples are disappearing from shelves faster than most people notice. The cost of meat, vegetables, and onions is climbing sharply. Factories are struggling with labor shortages, and the price of metal cans is rising on the global market. Just one snowstorm that shuts down transportation can leave the soup aisle empty by mid-afternoon. Many viewers have shared similar experiences. They didn't realize they were down to their last can of soup until they were sick. Early 2026 looks like it could be a repeat of that scenario, but even more stressful. You don't need to stockpile entire cases. But if canned soup or bone broth is something you turn to when you're tired, cold, or just plain low on energy, keeping a few extra cans at home isn't hoarding. It's practical preparation for the exact moments you'll truly need them. 4. Baby formula, especially sensitive and specialized types. This isn't about cost, it's about a child's survival. Few grocery items strike as much fear into a community as baby formula. Adults can switch brands or flavors. Infants cannot. For babies who rely on sensitive formulas, hypoallergenic, gentle, or amino acid-based, running out of the exact one can throw an entire household into crisis. Late winter and early February are always the riskiest months. Factories close for maintenance. Bad weather slows transportation. Import rules tighten. And when supply drops, it's the specialty formulas that vanish first. The doctor-recommended types families depend on. One mother wrote, "I drove to 6 stores and found only one can, and not the kind my baby needs. I cried right there at the counter." That single sentence says everything you need to know about why this is every parent's worst nightmare. A crucial safety note. All decisions about infant formula must follow your pediatrician's guidance. No DIY recipes, no substitutions, no improvising with mixing instructions. That said, here's the reality families are facing this winter. If your baby relies on a specific formula, don't wait until the last can is half empty. Keeping 1 or 2 backup containers during the cold months isn't panic buying. It's protecting your child from a very real risk. By February 2026, many areas may not have enough stock for families to secure the formula they need. Has your area ever faced a formula shortage? Share your experience in the comments so other parents can plan ahead and avoid the same stress. 3. Nuts and nut butters. Once considered a treat, nuts and nut butters have quietly become one of the most compact, reliable sources of survival energy. In normal years, almonds or peanut butter are just snacks. But when food starts to get tight, they suddenly feel as valuable as gold. High in energy, long-lasting, no cooking required, and capable of keeping you fueled for an entire day. What many people don't realize is this. Behind a simple bag of almonds lies an agricultural system under extreme strain. California, home to most of America's almonds and walnuts, is being forced to decide between watering trees or letting them die due to severe water shortages. In pistachio-growing regions, prolonged droughts are killing entire orchards, while storms and flooding in the south are devastating pecan farms. As supply tightens, the food industry adjusts in every direction. Snack makers cut back on nut content in their recipes. Granola bars swap ingredients. High-quality nut varieties quietly vanish from shelves. Among viewers, a clear trend emerges. People are stockpiling peanut butter, freezing nuts, or seeking more affordable alternatives. This isn't panic. It's simple foresight. While meat and dairy prices fluctuate wildly, nuts and nut butters remain one of the most stable sources of protein, healthy fats, and energy, especially for older adults who may not prepare 3 full meals a day. With winter and the holiday baking season approaching, demand is set to spike, pushing prices for every type of nut even higher. If your household relies on nuts or peanut butter regularly, now is the best time to ensure you have enough. Not to hoard, but to avoid being caught off guard when the market shifts overnight. 2. Greek yogurt and high-protein dairy products. Small in size, but a true lifeline of protein for anyone over 50. For many entering their 50s, 60s, and 70s, that morning cup of Greek yogurt isn't just a preference. It's the easiest, most digestible way to get a solid dose of protein. It helps maintain muscle, supports digestion, and feels lighter than meat or fish. But the dairy market is under a slow, steady squeeze. Feed prices are climbing, extreme weather is cutting raw milk supplies, processing plants are struggling with energy costs, and packaging has become both more expensive and harder to source. Attentive shoppers are already noticing the early warning signs. Your usual yogurt flavor might be in stock one week and gone the next. Large containers vanish first, replaced by smaller cups, while prices creep up incrementally. Subtle changes most people overlook, but unsettling if you rely on these products daily. Greek yogurt, kefir, skyr, cottage cheese, they're all highly sensitive to milk shortages. By the end of the winter season, when dairy demand spikes and factories reduce output for the holidays, these gaps on store shelves become impossible to ignore. If this is your primary protein source, especially if your doctor recommends higher protein to protect muscle and bone health, it's more than just food. It's a vital part of your daily well-being. Many people, seeing their preferred brand still available, choose to pick up an extra container or two to make sure they won't run short. With a typical shelf life of 2 to 3 weeks, it's one of the safer items to keep on hand for anyone depending on it for breakfast or a midday boost. And as shortages tighten, backup options like regular yogurt mixed with whey protein or a temporary switch to cottage cheese can help maintain protein intake without disrupting your routine. 1. Aluminum foil. You can't eat it, but your entire kitchen depends on it. Most people rarely think about aluminum foil, yet it's the unsung backbone of the American kitchen. Roasting a turkey, covering a lasagna pan, baking potatoes, lining sheet pans, freezing leftovers, everything stops the moment you run out. From late 2025 into early February 2026, foil has quietly become one of the most unstable items in the grocery supply chain. The reasons are straightforward, but serious. Producing aluminum requires enormous amounts of electricity, and soaring energy costs have forced several smelters to slow production, or even shut down. Foil mills rely heavily on European machinery, and replacement parts are trapped in global supply chain bottlenecks. At the same time, China has sharply cut aluminum exports to prioritize its domestic industries. The impact is already visible on store shelves. Rolls that look the same but are noticeably shorter are a clear example of shrinkflation in action. Grocery chains report falling inventory, and the packaging industry warns that shortages will ripple into frozen meals, takeout containers, and restaurant supplies. This isn't a call to hoard mountains of foil, but if your household uses it every day for cooking, meal prep, or freezer storage, picking up an extra roll or two before the cold months and the start of February 2026 isn't panic buying. It's simply preventing your kitchen from grinding to a halt over one small, deceptively simple item. The takeaway is simple. Don't panic. Don't buy out entire shelves, but look carefully at the 10 items that matter most to your family. Pick the ones you use regularly and prepare calmly, one small step at a time before February 2026 arrives. Because once the new year is underway, everything points to the same conclusion. The items that are scarce today will be even harder to find tomorrow. And to close on a strong note, engage directly with your viewers. Out of these 10 items, which ones are already disappearing or climbing in price in your area? Leave your state, city, and experience in the comments. You are the ones mapping the real picture of these shortages.